Dr. Sanjaya Senanayake is a virologist, he's a professor, and he's a guy who I wanted to talk tonight to get his opinion about this central idea. About 80% of people have mild experiences when they get coronavirus in Australia. I asked him a couple of other questions, and this doesn't go on for a long time. I just wanted to ask him some key questions, so when you hear people saying the wrong thing, quote him, not me, quote this guy as the reason to see things for what they are, not for what some people think is coming around the corner. Have a look.
Paul, I think it is really important to emphasise that 80% of people who get this infection will have a very mild infection and will not need to go to hospital and will just get over it at home. The problem is if we get it in large numbers, that means a large number of that sort of 20% who will need to be in hospital, but 80% of people will have a mild infection.
Now, we know that this theoretically gets worse the colder it gets in Australia because Europe is still in that cold area. They're still coming out of winter. Is that reasonable expectations of the behaviour of the virus that it's one thing where we are now, but theoretically it gets worse the colder it gets?
It's possible. We don't actually know with this coronavirus. We know with other coronaviruses that cause the common cold, it tends to be more seasonal, worse in winter, but it can occur in all seasons. And even though it's not particularly bad in total number of cases in Australia, we've still had quite a few cases in these warmer months, and it may well get worse in winter, and I think we certainly should adopt our pandemic plan to assume that's the case.
What's your view of, we hear every day that there is a researcher that is very close to a big step here. Last week, Roche, the medical company in the United States, said that they were close to a brand new testing kit that would be able to get things done within 24 hours. We'd be able to know what was going on. And we also hear even universities here in Australia, like the University of Queensland, supposedly very close to the vaccine. What's your hope about where we are at the start of this week as opposed to the start of last week about being able to test quicker and maybe eventually vaccinate?
I believe that there will be a vaccine very soon, in the sense that there'll be a vaccine we can hold in our hands. But unfortunately, it still needs to go through testing in human beings, in small studies to make sure it's safe, and then larger studies to make sure it's effective. And that will still take a long time. So we're still looking at a good 10 to 12 months, I would imagine. And in terms of testing, we're looking at other tests as well as the molecular tests we've got at the moment, like antibody tests, which will give us answers about how widespread this infection is. But in terms of the molecular tests we have at the moment, they're pretty good, and we can usually get a result within 24 hours.
He's a good bloke. We'll keep talking to him. He's the professor from ANU. Sanjaya is a man who we will keep talking to. But that key number, just to make you feel better and for you to understand, 80% of people will have it mild. But keep using this stuff. Keep your distance. No more handshakes. No more man hugs. We'll get through it. And make sure you keep up the people who are in casual employment. Keep them in employment.